Dudes and dudettes, we are back on the Hook Rocks. It's Jay Scott. Thanks again for tuning in. We always do appreciate it. Don't forget to check us out on pantheonpodcasts.com. Great platform of music-related podcasts, including the official Metallica podcast, the Metallica Report, and a whole bunch of others. Over 100 different music-related podcasts on that platform. You can find them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Pantheon Pods, and you can do the same with the Hook Rocks on all four of those platforms. Don't forget to write us a review when you're done listening, and don't forget to subscribe or follow us wherever you podcast so you get the latest episode right to your phone and you get to enjoy all the ones we've done in the past. We are approaching our 600th episode, probably do that by the end of the month. We've had some awesome guests and interviews since we started the year. We had Joe Satriani, we've had Dee Snider. We've also interviewed some great new bands too as well, like the Gems, band from Sweden, Tuck Smith, who's got some great new songs out right now, and a whole slew of others. A great Chicago blues-based band called Primal Moon, as well. Scott Halliday from Rival Sons was a great guest. So go check out all those and more. And like I said, write us a review. Let us know what you think. We always like to hear your feedback. We have a return guest for you today, a guest that released a single last year that really meant a lot to me. I was going through some health issues and I really connected to it. The song was called Spirits High. I had the pleasure of interviewing him at the beginning of last year. Great guest. Really talked about songwriting, about how the Beatles inspired him and how he studied the Beatles and all this stuff. One of my favorite interviews that I've ever done. And he's returned. He's got some news and some gifts of new music too as well with his band, the Exies. And that is producer, singer-songwriter Scott Stevens. What's happening, man? How are you?
Hey, Jay. Good to be back on the show. Thank you so much for having me, man. And always a pleasure. I think you were the very first one to interview me after Spirits High came out because of our mutual friend Tyler Baker from Goodbye June. Am I correct in that? I think so.
That is correct. I popped your podcast cherry.
That's right, you did. I love that, man. And you were the first to reach out about this new one too. So it's very fitting that you're the first one I'm talking to. So,
well, I heard through the grapevine that you were coming out with an EP and a single, and I'm like, I got to have him on because it's got to be a yearly thing with Scott because he was such a great interview that and I contacted you and you were kind of going through figuring out the cycle of getting this out there and everything. So I was like, all right, cool, but glad we're doing this now. It's great to have you here. I've interviewed a lot of the artists that you've worked with, including Dorothy, Aaron Jones as well. Yeah. And they always speak greatly about you. And yeah, it's great to have you back, man.
They're such great people and they're such hardworking artists as well. And they push me and I push them and they make, getting up and coming into the studio, much more of a pleasure than a grind, even though it is always a grind, it's a pleasure grind.
Well, if you're going to do a grind, right, you might as well enjoy it.
That's right. If you're going to do it, you're going to get in the trenches, you better dig it, so you better like what you're doing. You better dig what you're shoveling. There you go.
That's the title of the next song, right?
Yeah, you better dig what you're shoveling. Yeah, man, it's things are moving. It's just crazy how you can you start off with just something that is just like if you were writing a short story or you were writing your thoughts down or whatever it is, or I want to do this, or, everything that we think of from random times in our lives to finishing that song and putting it out and the reaction that it got. And, it made it, onto, independent, or not independent, but like specialty radio, Rock 30 countdown and this and that, and went number one. And it just, you can't write that stuff and you can't predict that stuff. And I guess it just kind of proves that there's always something coming for you and you don't really necessarily know what it is. But if you focus on what you love, the what in life, the how takes care of itself, because the how isn't up to you. And, that song led me to you and a few others and got Tyler, was one of the very first people to call me the day that it came out. And it was just like, this song bangs, man. And you could get back in it with this track. You got to get back in it. And at that time, it was just kind of like, Yeah, I don't really think that's going to happen, but thanks for the vote of confidence, and as a year ticks by, uh, developments happen and, things start moving in a way that you never predicted. And that's kind of where I am today. Uh, I couldn't, I couldn't write that, what's about to unfold is something that I, would have known a year ago. So
That's a beautiful moment, though, when you write a song and you have, I don't want to say low expectations because that's not the case, but rather tempered expectations, right?
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right.
Yeah,
And you're putting it out for yourself at that point.
exactly.
And it becomes more than what you could have ever imagined, right? And that's like a really sweet moment to have for yourself because you've worked hard in this industry all these years and to have something like that that connects with people. And I think that's the most important thing about that song is no matter what it did on radio and all this stuff, the connection that was forged with your audience and people who heard the song, like myself,
Yeah.
that is like a currency, right? That you can't put a value on.
That's beautifully put. You're right. It's funny. There was a gentleman I want to give him his due here, and he passed last year, and his name was Randy Smith, and he was AKA Boner from Chattanooga's rock radio station, and he was a supporter of the Exies for all the years that we were out doing it, and you know, I when when I gave him the song and he called me, and goes, I'm going to add this song to the station. I was like, what? He's like, I love it. There's a real message here. This is really good. And he goes, I want to call you tonight. So he called me and I was in Nashville and, we just ended up talking just like you and I are right now. And somehow he got me to this point of figuring out that I was the only one that had to like this song, because like you said, there's a tempered expectation, you want people to like it and relate to it. But he really saw the forest through the trees it was almost like a therapy session of like, I did it because of this. Okay. And why did you do it? Well, I just don't know. And why did you do it? And I kept on going down and down. And finally it came down. He's like, you're the only one that had to like that song. And the minute that you liked that song, it gave the opportunity for others to decide whether or not they liked it. And he was really spot on with that. And he told me, he said, you're not done yet. And the way he said it, it's still, now that he's, passed, it just echoes in my head of like, what does that really mean? And, now I find myself a year later working on more material and, things are coming that I guess we can talk about during this interview with us, with me. But like, it's crazy, man. Like you said, the currency of I don't think I ever quite experienced something quite like that, even in all the years I was in the band, because I was so far removed from this that this was just the page out of a diary and writing something that felt good to me. And who am I? I don't even know that I'm Scott Stevens from the Exies because I haven't done it for 15 years, so finding that kind of identity again was a fun challenge. Never to be thought of that it would reach anybody, So here we are, man. It's crazy.
I always believe that a great song has to be a great song, obviously, but it's also about timing too, as well. And coming out of the pandemic, coming out of just the last 10 years of just whatever is going on, I think that means a lot to the success and the connection with this song too, as well, because people, I think, especially in my case, were looking for something to connect to kind of encapsulate what they need out of this turmoil that we've had in our society over, well, how you can decide however many years we've had it, but I think that really resonated with a lot of people because for 2 years we were kind of in slow motion and paused in our life. And during that time, a lot of people had a lot of self-discovery, People also were interested in different things. People also had a lot of problems themselves of just being cooped up and being restricted. And
Yes.
hearing a song like that, I think, really touched a lot of people because they need to keep their spirits high through all this stuff. And I think it was the right moment and the right mood.
Yeah, it really, I think I just had this moment where I felt like, wow, this is truly how it feels to be in this pandemic. And I'm trying to figure out how to keep optimistic, and, I gotta feel like that there's a lot of people that feel the same way as I do. So here goes nothing, and you start crafting the lyric, but I'm not really crafting it for anybody other than myself, but everybody is in my, in my feeling when I'm writing the words, because none of us are alone, right? We all need each other. So in a sense, even when you're typically, when you say you're writing for yourself, you're really writing for everyone, because we're all experiencing things differently, but the same. We're all human. We're all having hardship. We're all having joy. We're all going through all of it, just at different times, but we're all taking the same ride. Not everybody's is the same. Some people lose everything, become homeless, but some other people lose a spouse or a child, or, or whatever it is. We're all going through our hardship. And, the pandemic that was something that none of us could ever be prepared for. There was no inkling of how to deal with that, other than you're in your house and now you're ordering groceries and you're washing everything with soap, and it became this just different. Wait a minute, I got to wear a mask outside with nobody around, floating germs outside, just gonna get in my nose and my, what? This is madness. So I think looking back on that, I think some of that is just hooey, but scare tactics. But at the same time, a lot of it was true. I remember the first time I got COVID, I was sick as hell.
Yeah.
And I just was like, man, I got to go to the hospital, Second time I got it wasn't so bad, but first time was brutal.
Yeah. I remember when I first had it too as well. I actually thought I was going to die. I remember laying in bed. I didn't know. I remember it was February 2020, and I got up and I looked at my phone. It said 7:00, and I had no idea if it was 7:00 in the morning or 7:00 at night, because I had been sleeping for I don't know how long. And I actually put a case of water in my bed, where I was just taking bottles out and just drinking.
Drinking them and just throwing them on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You're lucky you didn't, when you got up, you didn't, at least they're empty, so you just crush on them, but.
Yeah.
One long movement.
That's all I was doing. I got up twice a day to take my dog out in the morning and my dog out at night and feed him. That was it. But I think you touched on something right there too, as well, is that I think when people are dealing with something, they tend to think that they're the only ones dealing with it, and that causes the isolation, because they think nobody wants to hear their problems. I'm the only one that's going through this. And a lot of things these days push that whole facade and that narrative with social media. No one ever takes a picture and posts it on social media of them having a bad day, right? Or going through problems. Everything's happy 24/7. We have the greatest life. We're going here, we're going there. And everyone's like, oh my God, they're so happy. I'm not.
Yeah.
But that stuff that they see is all BS, right? I mean, because everybody, like you said, has their problems.
Everybody has their problems. It's okay to show that you're having and you very may well be having a good time. But yeah, you said something very pointed, and that is, a lot of people have a hard time hearing other people's problems, and that's very true. I mean, I try to listen. I'm as guilty as the next sometimes for tuning that out or not giving it as much credence as it might need. Trying to get better about that in my life. But yeah, I think if we were all just a little bit more patient and listening to each other's, because we all know how to articulate what's maybe bugging us or wrong with us. It comes out a different way. Everybody has a different way of explaining what it is. And And then vice versa, the way you interpret that or the way you're trying to, listen to what this person is saying varies as well. So unfortunately, with the way we are with social media and everything is an instant gratification, people just don't have the attention span to listen to people that are really going through shit. And it basically, it's now we find ourselves in a very desperate state where so many people are losing their minds, and they're becoming homeless, or they just don't know who to talk to, or they're taking their own lives or this or that because they just do feel the isolation and they don't really know where to turn. I'm just sitting here trying to go, like, where does this end and how does this get better? And does it get better with, adding a few more minutes when you're listening to somebody that's in need? Is that how it turns? My contribution to listening to somebody else's problems and really trying to give an honest answer of how to help them, at least how I perceive it. Is that the answer? Maybe that helps, on a mass scale, but we're kind of in a big shit show right now. Kind of, we are. And we're trying to, as I said, to someone else, surviving this technological adolescence that we're in is the real trick. Because there's always, when you start any new wave or era, television, motorized vehicles, cell phones, computers, there's always casualties and there's always successes. And we're like right in that right now with social media and AI. How do we go through this with minimal casualties? And right now, I don't know that there is going to be minimal. I think there's going to be more, actually. It's going to get worse before it gets better, because nobody cares about the discipline that we need to understand what we're going through. Everybody's just like, here, and when you learn something like swimming or something when you're a child, sure, you can be just thrown in the water as a baby and you're going to swim because it's kind of in your, it's in your DNA, but you don't learn to really swim properly and to do other things without training and time. Everything is just being thrown out here. I mean, literally my iPhone, when I look at it, there's probably 380 things with this phone that I don't even know how to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't care, and it's like, but maybe I should care, and maybe I should have had a tutorial when I got this thing that made me learn something about it before it switched on, or, you know what I mean? It's like, I can't just get my A without doing all my work in school. So, yeah, Dave, tech companies are to blame as well, man. They just throw it out there, and here we are fending for ourselves. What's this button do? And that kind of a thing. And so we find ourselves getting more and more disconnected by looking down to the device in our hand. But yet this thing connects us like we've never been connected before. And what I'm saying is totally redundant. It's said by everybody every day, but right. It's good to talk about it because, you know what? Right now, AI is creating music, but it ain't creating the soul of, you can listen to an Amy Winehouse song right now that she didn't write, but it doesn't have the heartbeat that Rehab does or things like that. It's gonna, they may never get it. It may never happen because a robot may never know how to quite get that humanistic feeling through being able to say something and have another human being feel it. And that's where music still wins right now, I think.
Well, I think, yeah, that's a great point. AI takes us farther and farther away from the art. And the art is all in the soul. It's all in the person. Yeah. And, you can listen to 5 different guitar players play the same riff, and all 5 are going to sound, they're going to play the same riff, but it's going to sound different. Yeah. That's the art. That's the soul. And when you have AI doing it, it takes that completely out. There's no feeling towards it. It's just put it into a computer. Whatever it spits out is what you have. But there's no slaving over lyrics. There's no slaving over a riff, trying to write the right hook. All that stuff that goes into it, how it all comes to be, the ambiance of the mood of the song. It's all stale. It's all, it's plastic. It's like, it's not real. And I mention this all the time on my podcast. My son, who's 19, he's off at school now. He played guitar. He's learning guitar. And I always tell people, take your kid to a rock concert. Like, well, I'm like, they will see way worse on their phone than they will see at a rock concert. And you don't need to take them to a big ticket concert, at a stadium arena. There's plenty of small theaters and clubs that are all ages, 17 and over, whatever the case is. And they will experience something that is completely crazy to them. I mean, there's people on stage playing music and there's people in the audience singing back, like completely engaged with each other. There's a synergy that exists that they will never experience. And giving that to my son and having him go to live music and see live music. And then when I hear him play his guitar in his room, there's three things. I know where he's at.
Yeah.
I know that he's practicing, so he understands that you got to work at something to perfect it.
Yes.
And the third thing is he's not on his phone. His nose isn't buried in his phone. He's learning Ace Frehley's "Shock Me" solo from Kiss. I mean, and he's working on that for like hours on end. I mean, I would hear him try to play it, and I hear him swear under his breath, and I didn't want it to stop because he's learning so many lessons by doing that.
Yeah, it's good. It's great. It teaches discipline.
Right.
Nothing comes so easy,
Right. And those are the kids you don't have to worry
about.
Nothing
good comes that easy.
Right. You don't have to worry about the kid falling on the skateboard that gets back up and keeps doing what he was doing. Even though he's fallen like 12 times and his knees are all scraped up and his elbows are scraped up, but he keeps doing it. Those kids you don't got to worry about. It's the ones that don't do that stuff. That's when you got to worry about, are they too isolated? Are they too, and taking them to a rock concert, it's like, this is incredible. There's nothing like it for a young kid to see that. There isn't. Yeah. And like I said, everyone, there's, what about all this? I'm like, they have all that on their phone. They want to go see something that they shouldn't see. They'll just go on their phone and look it up, and they're in their room for hours on end looking at it.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
So, yeah, I think any type of art, and not just music, whether it's sculpting, whether it's painting, dancing, whatever, give your kid that gift that teaches so many things to them and get them out of the house and get them open and not isolated.
Yeah, real experience, right? The visceral thing of being there, being in a moment. I saw a funny thing, speaking of being on the phone, an Instagram thing. It showed everybody was filming this moment. There was this really old woman and she's just watching it. And I was just like, that's it. And I'm guilty of that too, taping things sometimes, but I try to check myself and just like let my brain be the photograph,
Yeah. You will always enjoy the experience if you're mentally present as well as physically present, more than watching through a screen at a concert.
Yeah.
Oh, always.
I've done it a couple times where I've watched something and I'm not watching through the phone and I'm just holding the phone. And then when I look at it, it's like above the stage and because I didn't focus it on anything, so it's worthless.
I try to put it right up against my chest and just hold it steady because I don't like when people put it up above their head because I'm 6'2", so I can do that, most days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's when the people got the flash on and they got the like, what are we doing here? It's crazy. But so Spirits High comes out last year, and obviously we talked about the success that it had, and now fast forward to now, and you've got a new single out for What It's Worth. It's fantastic. It's awesome. Did you need Spirits High, and I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, in order for you to do this?
Well, this song is a different look. It's a different color. It's a little more aggressive. Everything I've done with Spirits High and with For What It's Worth, there's intent and purpose behind it. I'm basically going back to the records that I created with the band because this song is 3 years old. Spirits High was 4 years old. And, there was a group of songs that I started to work on during COVID in that March 2020 to November, December of 2021. and a lot of time on my hands. And the only way I could really get through it was to kind of, because I wasn't doing any Zoom writes or anything like that. That really wasn't, it was kind of happening, but I wasn't a fan of it. So it was a lot of downtime. And so everything was kind of created in this time. And, when Spirits High, like I think I said on our first interview, was that it really reminded me of Ugly in the way, in the pacing and the chords, even though they're different, there was a sound. And I went for that consciously, because it felt like us in 2005. And, for what it's worth, is a little more forward thinking on the production and whatnot, but it's still not unlike These Are the Days or some of the stuff that's off the Inertia record. We were heavily into programming on that album, and not that there's really much programming, but there's more aggressive drumming and things like that. So I basically keep a real conscious effort to keep everything in the wheelhouse of the band and sounding like the band. It's going to, of course, sound a little bit newer because of technology, and I'm not in a studio tracking live drums and on a SSL console. I'm working in the computer and with plugins and this and that, but I do have real amp simulators and guitars and real acoustics and mics that I'm using. So there's that organic component, but it was, it's all kind of handled with care and thought of as like, this has to feel like the band. This has to feel like something I would say, not something that I could write and say to whoever the artist is that I might be working with. Here's a song idea. Do you like this chorus? None of that could be allowed when I was working on this stuff. It just had to be uniquely to me, and at least lyrically, thematically. And, this is a continuation. I don't think I could have written this song without Spirits High, because once I got through that cathartic kind of feeling that I had of what is this life, and how am I going to navigate this moving forward? It allowed me to reflect on all the years that I was in the band, all the years that I had sacrificed, all the years that my wife had sacrificed, that my family had sacrificed, my brother, my sister, my blah, blah, blah. And, not even that, the band members, and thinking, like, wow, what a journey we went on, and we really gave it everything we could give. And, some of it turned out how we wanted and some of it didn't, but in the end, I guess I wouldn't change a thing, because that was the road, that was the journey. And, I wouldn't have been able to write that lyric without going through Spirits High first, because it allowed me to put that part of it away. Like therapy, I kind of got through it. I'll never really get over it, but I put it away. And then I started to talk about what that time period meant to me and what my life meant to me up to that time 3 years ago. And to say, I had to lose the thing I loved the most, which was the band. The band fell apart, and I don't really know why that happened, but I know that certain forces just caused us to kind of drift, and then other musicians came in and they were all great, but it just never seemed to, it started to go in reverse. And watching that die was one of the hardest things I had to go through, because that was it for me. That was like, no plan B. This is what I'm going to do. And it seemed as though we were going to get the brass ring, and we'd had top fives and we were doing well, and touring was starting to happen. And out of that, I came up with the line, I had to lose it all to do the best I could. And I just feel that sometimes in life, you have to let go of the things that you love the most, because there's something that is greater waiting for you that you're really not privy to. And if you can just trust it, it will reveal itself to you. And I started to write and produce for others, and it didn't happen overnight. It took years. And then things started to pop. And, I never stopped studying and working really hard, but I certainly didn't do the Exies anymore, and it wasn't even on my radar, and so it's funny how letting go of what I loved most has brought me back to it. Somehow, like the whole thing of like, if you love something, let it go, and then if it comes back to you as meant to be, that's what's happening right now. For what it's worth. That's it. I mean, that's what is happening. I mean, there's new music, and there's a reunion show, and this stuff is crazy. I could have never predicted this, and I'm getting nothing but support for it. And, am I a little anxious about it? If it doesn't scare you, it's probably not worth doing. So yeah, a little bit, when you're not on stage for 15 years, it's not like, oh, there it is, just like riding a bike. I mean, it's going to be difficult, but it's going to be fun as hell,
How different is the mindset when you write for Hailstorm, Dorothy, Aaron Jones, versus writing for yourself?
I think that's a very hard thing to articulate, but I have to put all of my attention on the artist that I'm working with, and I have a certain level of responsibility that I have to like what we're working on as well, but I put them first, and I in my craft, I study and I listen. That's the thing I think I do the most, is I listen to what they have to say. I listen to their ideas. If they don't have an idea, it's just like maybe it's a topic or a title, or it's multiple conversations before we actually get in the room. I'm researching and I'm thinking, and this is what Hailstorm means to me. And, this riff feels like that band kind of to me, and then through whittling and time, you figure out how to make it actually really work. It's all a little bit of a guess, but there is some work that goes into it of trying to narrow it down and doing your homework. And, I wouldn't get in a room with Brent Smith and not be prepared. You know what I mean? Like, I would say, okay, this feels like this could be something that Shinedown would develop, or here's a title, or this or that. And then you present it. You have to just jump. And sometimes you get, that's great. And sometimes you get, that sucks. And, or you get laughed at, like nothing more. I remember when I first worked with them and I presented an idea, Mark, the guitar player, who is my dear friend now, just laughed at me, and it was one of those things where he's like, we'd never do that, and I said, well, that's why you're here, because you would never do it, and we should try it. And those conversations turn into songs like This Is the Time, and I mean, not Jenny, but they asked me to work on Jenny. And I actually, as a writer, when you're put in that position, you're like, okay, I'll find something wrong with this song and I'll get credit on it. I couldn't find anything wrong with that song. So I refused it literally, I think 5 times. Johnny asked me to get in there. I was like, there's nothing wrong with this song. But we wrote like 6 songs on that. Here's to the Heartache, and, a bunch of them, Sex, Lies, and Sex and Lies, or I can't remember now the titles, but it started from me also kind of studying them and throwing ideas at them, and that's the essence of what it is. You can only hope that you meet in the middle on something, and that you both are passionate about working on it. Versus when I work for myself, I somehow know that that's not a melody for somebody else. That's my voice in my head, and I got to follow that. And that's what happened with Spirits High. That's what happened with For What It's Worth. I literally was sitting on the couch and I was strumming. All of a sudden I hit the chords of the chorus and I went da 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 da, and it just came out like that. But I didn't have the words, but the melody happened, and I started to kind of just work on it. And within, I think it was like 45 minutes, 30 minutes, I had them. I think I had the chorus. I think I had the lyrics. Because it's like that. If you haven't seen the Beatles on Disney, like the making of Let It Be, there's what am I looking for? The antidote to solving songwriting is kind of right there for everybody to see. They just sing the melody, and then the melody kind of shapes the words, right? And kind of, because you don't always know what you want to say, so you're following this thing, these what is it? Remember George Harrison's asking Paul, what are the lyrics? And Paul's just like, keep saying it, it'll come. and it turns into something. You know what I mean? And it's like yesterday, right? Like yesterday was scrambled eggs. You follow the melody, and the words somehow appear. And for me, all of a sudden, I caught myself going, for what it's worth, I had to feel a breakthrough. And I was like, okay, I think that's it. And you start to shape it and hone it, and you don't really know where it's going, and it's kind of a fun little game, dance, I don't know what you want to call it, but you're kind of going on a ride. And when it feels right to me, that's the best that I can do, and then I put it out there, and if people feel it, great. And if they don't, they don't. It's not my song anymore. Now it's just out there for everybody to decide if they want it to be theirs. So that's all that's how I can differentiate it a little bit. I don't know. Was that awful?
No, that was great. Do you study yourself? You talked about studying other artists. Do you internally study you?
Yeah, because I have a habit of always talking to myself, and it's how I think. And so, like, my wife is always like, "Who are you talking to?" And I'm like, "Me." And by now she knows it's just him. He's mumbling, And I think that's how I understand me, is I just kind of talk out loud, and I don't think there's anything wrong in it. Some people could look at me strange, but it's not like I'm not saying sentences that don't make sense. I'm but this is like, I'm not walking like outside on the street and babbling, but when I'm in my studio, or if I'm having coffee in the morning, I'm very vocal with like how something's hitting me, or maybe somebody else's music is hitting me, or what somebody said on a podcast, or this or that, and I just kind of talk it out. So that's the only way I guess I can go outside of myself and look at me and go, well, that must be how I kind of start to break the egg. That must be it.
I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with Corey Glover of Living Color. Cool. And we had probably one of the best conversations I've had about songwriting. And one of the things that he talked about, which I had never heard before, but the way he put it was so interesting, is that he forces himself to have conversations within himself on lyrics, and he gets the two parts of his mind to talk to each other. Like, why are you writing this lyric? What does this mean? Do you know the meaning of it? What is it? All these things that he goes through internally to help spit out lyrics and come to a song that he's creating. Is that something similar that you do?
Well, I say, who said that? And then the other one says, it's me. And I go, who's that? It's me. No. Who's me? No, I don't think I do it the same way, but I do get analytical on things. When Spirit's High, when I hatched that, or when I hatched Ugly, or even this new one, or These Are the Days, or songs like that. Like, I always kind of, what am I really trying to say here? And when I finally feel like, oh yeah, that's it, that makes sense to me, then I set it down for a little while, and then I'll look at it in a couple of days. And when I just first look at it after forgetting about it, songs have a way of cooking when you let go of them and you work on other things and your mind isn't thinking of that at all. When you come back, all of a sudden you see it with an objectivity, and you see where the holes are, or you can see if it's right. When you're doing this as much as I do it for as many years as I've done it, it becomes like anybody that practices anything. There are certain things that you have to be disciplined about, which is time away from the song, and you have to be doing these kinds of exercises all the time. You can't build your body if you're not doing push-ups every day. If you just decide to do push-ups once a month, good luck. It's like you have to do the work. And so I have to create every day, sometimes for a half an hour and sometimes for 4 hours. It just depends on what it is. And that discipline, and that shows helps me to analyze what it is that I'm working on. But like we go way back in our conversation, is that it always has to feel right. Feeling is king. It's it trumps everything. And if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't even matter if the lyric totally makes sense. I mean, look at Nirvana. Not all those words make sense, but there's a feeling, and I believe what he's saying has the right intent, even though I might not fully get it. But that's art, right? That's okay, I just feel that there's no real way to do it, but in the age of where we are right now, it seems that relating to a lyric, is more predominant than it was in the 90s, where it was more colorful. But still, feeling is king. And when you get the right word, that might be a little more straightened down the line, but it still doesn't disrupt the feeling of the melody. You're hitting gold, it's pay dirt.
Well, you can sing you could write the lyrics and sing the lyric, but if the music doesn't pull you in, the hook, it'll fall on deaf ears, so to speak. Like you got to it's all got to come together. And that's what, on our last conversation, when you talked about how you studied how the Beatles sang over melodies. And that's why their music still connects, because those songs are still like the template for great songwriting because of that.
Yeah. I mean, look, you could take it and all those songs have been done in other languages. And let's just say that that's the first time you've ever heard it. And it's in, Swahili. I don't know. It's like, the melody is going to work, and the chord progressions and the beat and the feeling of the song is always going to be intact. And that's the God particle. That's the magical thing that nobody really knows where it comes from. But if you do it enough, you recognize it and you grab on when it hits you and you go for the ride. And hopefully you're doing it justice. And you're being true to yourself. So, I mean, there's a saying that if it's right for the writer, then it's right for everyone. So take that for what it's worth. Another plug. Just kidding.
I was like, no pun intended.
Pun intended.
Yeah. We spoke about how Spirits High is so defining. How did you come up with the defining moment of For What It's Worth, the new song? Like, where was that definition? Where did that definition come from? Was it, as you wrote it, was it part of the vision in the beginning, or did it end up being as a result of the finished product?
I think it happened right when I figured out the chorus. Once I put those lines together of like, for what it's worth, I built my life around you, which went for my life with the band, everybody that was involved, my wife, the people that we choose to be around. And then, and I wouldn't change a thing if I could. Once I got those lines all to intertwine together, I realized, I said, this is just like this kind of a life statement song up to now. And that just feels, this is where I am right now in my life, that I want to say something like this. And I just followed that. And I think after that became, okay, what does that exactly mean? And I think it became, facing regrets, facing things that I've done wrong, enjoying the fruits of what had happened, and trying to take in account for everything good and bad, and putting it in a lyric that sums up that, am I enough for myself? And did I do enough for everyone else? And was this effort enough? Because I think sometimes we wonder, like, are we enough? And really it comes down to, are you enough for yourself? Because if you are, then that you can help others and you can do other things, but you have to feel that you're accomplishing your wants and your desires and your things that, they fill you with joy, and, that you embrace sadness and you do these things and you go through these things. So I think once you make peace with that and you accept it as a ever evolving, changing thing, you realize that time is fleeting. All that, this is going quick. And, basically take stock in what you've done. And you have to ask yourself, did you give enough? Is your heart feel satisfied? And for me, when I listen to this new song, I do feel satisfied because I'm saying I hope it was enough, because that was the best I could do at that time. And it was also the best I could do when I wrote that song at that time 3 years ago. So, if I wrote it today, would it be the same song? Nope. And would it be better? Possibly. Would it be worse? Possibly. It just is the document and the best I could do at that moment. And I was trying to give a love letter to everything that had come before and honor the past. And Spirit's Eye is kind of that way too. It kind of honors the past, and it kind of honors, all the time that we were all going through. And, it honors the past in the way that it feels kind of like an old Exies song, like '05, but it was a current kind of situation that we were all going through. Whereas this one is kind of going back and looking at my life and going, did I live it the way I wanted to do it up to this point? And, I came to the conclusion that yes, it is. But it hasn't been perfect. And what is, so, take it for, this document of what it is at this time in my life. That's what that song is. And maybe you can find yourself in it. I've had a few people reach out and, I built my life around you as I built my life around my wife, and now I'm divorcing and and, they're finding their meaning in it. And that's the beauty of music, is you find your story in it,
It sounds like the underlying theme of it is self-awareness.
I think so.
Yeah.
A part of it, for sure.
Because with coming up with that definition, you have to be aware of the thoughts, who you are, what you've done, what you've came from, how you've overcome challenges, how you've grown from success, all these things. And that takes self-awareness and
reflection.
And through reflection becomes that awareness and knowing your limitations, knowing your strengths. And it sounds like that really is kind of the underlying theme of, it's kind of like a testimonial of your life.
Yeah, it's a reflection. I'm doing the best that I can with the circumstances that I'm given.
Right.
And that's all of us. Like I'm doing the best that I can with what I got to go through day to day. Some days are great and some days are not so great. And that's all of us. We hit the highs and then we have the lows, and, there's no way to encapsulate all of it into one sentence or anything like that. But I believe that this is a statement that we all can relate to, because we are always we're always we're looking to the future. We're looking to the past. We very rarely are very attentive in what's happening right now. And I think that song kind of made me present in looking at the past, like really looking at now and asking myself the hard questions. And that's maybe the cool little gem of what made that song kind of come to fruition, because I'm here and now, but I'm analyzing what I've already done. And I'm just saying, well, this is how I've lived it. And if you have a similar experience, I hope you feel it.
Well, it's you reflect on the past, and there's all, the saying goes, you learn from the past, right? But when you're in the present, you're trying to figure out how you've got to the present, how you've become who you are. And when you do a reflection of the past, you go through all these diary entries of your life, and you come up like, oh, wow, this is who I am. And this is how I became who I am. Mm-hmm. And I can either continue to be who I am, or if I want to change things in the future, I need to be more aware of these things. I need to be pay attention to what I do or how I react to these things. And people always say people don't change. Well, you can if you're aware. If you're aware of who you are, and your behaviors, right, because of your history, you can change who you become.
Yeah, you can. You really can if you work hard at it. It doesn't come overnight, and it's a slow process. But if you do it, if you're diligent on it, you will see change. Just going back to like something as silly as, what I said about working out. I mean, you work out every day, you're going to see change, right? In your body, your diet changes, you're going to see that. You practice your guitar every day, you're going to get better at your scales, you're going to get better at writing. It's all the same. So, we sometimes, we get so wrapped up in the day to day that we do forget what's happening to us in all those moments. Life, what did John Lennon say? Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. That's it. I mean, so I think looking back at something that I spent so much time with, 12 years of my life touring and giving everything I had, and then all of a sudden a 15-year hiatus, and then all of a sudden these songs that came out of COVID, it really made me stop and pause and look at what I had already accomplished and what I had done, and that I should appreciate it, and none of it was perfect, but some of it was. And, at least for me it was, and it's important to I don't want to say pat yourself on the back, but to say that was the best I could do it, while I was in that moment, and I lived and I enjoyed it, and I think that we don't do that enough for ourselves. And, we're always taught that the next thing, the bigger, the better, but there's great moments that are always happening every day right in front of you. Like, one of my favorite quotes is from Fisher King with Robin Williams, as he said, sometimes the most significant moments of your life pass right in front of you like a stranger in a crowd, and you don't even realize it until it's gone. And I think that that's what this part of this song is for me. It's looking at what is gone, and I'm celebrating it. It wasn't perfect, but I had a hell of a time doing it.
I think back in my own life, and I've said this before to friends of mine. I have no idea who that 21-year-old guy, that 18-year-old kid was years ago. Like, I can't relate to that guy anymore. And that shows the growth of a person, right? Because if you're still that same person you were at 21, I mean, if I was still the same person I was at 21, I was a lunatic back then. I mean, like, I live with a rock band, and and that's a whole nother episode. But
well, you'd either be living in a mansion or in a van down by the river. I don't know.
More likely by the river. But I think about that, and that shows the evolution of the person. Because if you still are that person you were 30 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, how much can you say to yourself that you've grown, right? And you have a different perspective on things. And I think how that relates to you and your music, you talk about a 15-year hiatus. I would just love to know the emotion of revisiting something 15 years later, from the person you were to the person you are now. And that sounds like in your mind you were working all that out while you were creating, which is really interesting, because that's like front and center of you. Like, you're reflecting and creating, and you're a different person than you were 15 years ago. That's a cool and scary and fun place to be all at once. That's amazing.
You're absolutely right. It was like wrapping some kind of something that was very important to you when you were, a teenager, and then 20 years later you found that box and you opened it and there was that same thing that was special to you. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? So it was exhilarating when it started happening, but then it became, well, I'm not the same person anymore. So how do I get it to sound like then? But I have to be me now, because I can't be, like you said, I can't be that person I was when I was 20, so, that there begins the work. And that's why all these songs, for what it's worth, this song, the other ones I've worked on, none of them were easy. Not one ever gave me any ounce of peace while doing it. And I kept saying that. I was like, why can't one of these be easy? And none of them were. And it really put me through the ringer to try to bring to take the past and root it in the future. I never did anything like that before in my life, and so you're clocking it really good. It was an exhilarating, scary, oh my gosh, this is going to be incredible, to I'm fucking terrified. All happening in this course of these months, and then you have to be bold and you have to put it out there, and you never know what's going to happen, and some songs are going to work better than others, and that's just the way it goes, but I gotta put it out now. It's just been sitting around for so long, so here they come.
It's also the dangers of the memory bank, as I say, right? We have this thing, me and my son have this thing, whenever we travel, we never eat at chain restaurants because you can get the chain restaurants back home.
Anywhere, sure.
Yeah, so you eat what the locals eat, right? And what that does is when you're thinking of that trip 10 years, 10 years later, and you think about that breakfast you had in a town in Colorado or Arizona, it triggers all these memories that come flooding back, and you start to remember more vividly the whole trip and the memories. And that's what the whole point of doing that is. And creating, when you're going back and you look, and you said you metaphorically said that box, that you're going through, that's got to also trigger the memory bank too as well, and having these vivid memories of what things were, unresolved, resolved, all these things, and to put that all into a creative box like you did with these songs, that's an authenticity that is very hard to capture, very hard.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, I guess, because I'm not in the same position that I was, so they have to be 100%. Like I said before, it just has to be 100% something that I feel I would do and nobody else would do. So that makes it authentic to me. And that's where I started to do the woodshedding on, and it became something to pass the time, in a time of great madness. And it was it was fun. It was, I was feeling things like the first songs that I had written before we became a signed band and did anything. It was just exhilarating because it wasn't just coming together. Like I said, everything was so hard. So one day a few lines would come, or maybe the verse progression, or this is how to play that riff. I mean, that opening riff, sure, we could just, you hear it, but I had to figure that out 5 different times, how to really make it work. And the inversions of the chords, and it just didn't come easy. And when I finally landed on it, I was like, yeah, that's it, and so it's very gratifying when you work at it. It's, like whittling a statue or something. All of a sudden there's the image out of this just piece of wood, and it's something, rather than just wood, and there's the song, I start putting it together one section at a time, and okay, today I think I got it. I'm going to go in and try to program a beat to see if this feels right, and it just became a kind of a beautiful experiment that I'll cherish it for the rest of my days, because I didn't have to answer to anybody. I just had to do it,
It's one thing to write and create it and record it. It's another thing to play it live. And that's what you're doing. You have a reunion show scheduled. And what was that like, taking it from the studio to now being on the stage and doing that? What's that like, preparing for that?
It's crazy. I mean, we have limited rehearsals. We're all working on our own. I set up, I've got my triple rectifier in my cabinet and my guitar sitting in that room over there. And I, turn on the music here and I play along with it. And I just kind of refamiliarize myself with, how I played it, how I sang it. And it becomes a lot of that kind of woodshedding. And, I suspect that it will be a show that does has its problems. I mean, all live gigs are tough. There's always some kind of Murphy's Law. So I'm just hoping that that's to a minimum. And that we try to have as much fun as we can. I don't really know how to predict anything of how that will happen, but once we've made up our mind to do this, you just got to jump and you just got to do it. We did thousands of shows, and we did this, as a life thing for so many years. Some of it's going to come back naturally, and some of it isn't. So it's just about diligence of me doing, singing 3 or 4 days a week and playing and trying to perform it, because I haven't been in that situation for as long as I can remember. I mean, when I write a song with Lizzie, I don't have to perform the Hailstorm song. She does, so I never have to worry about that. But now I'm having to, like with Spirits High and playing it, and that's kind of complicated right there, and getting used to that again, so, but it's fun, and we are really looking forward to it,
Is there plans to do more after this show?
I mean, sure, we talk about it. I think you have to get through this one. You got to do one to have two. And we got to get through this show first. And once we do that, I think we'll evaluate, do we want to jump into another one right away, or do we want to spend a little more time rehearsing and figuring out how it goes, or was it one and done? I don't really know. I'm being completely transparent about that. So I think that if people really want to come and see us, this might be the last time. So you should, come down and have fun, and hopefully we transport you back to a time that was a good time for you.
It's kind of like the songs, Spirits High was potentially one and done, and now you've got For What It's Worth.
Yeah.
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 When is the show?
It's May 29th, which is a Wednesday, but that's a sexy day because it's a hump day.
Right. Hump days are always sexy.
Yeah. It's a Wednesday. We're going on early. It's at the Viper Room in Hollywood, California. We're going to go on at 8:30 sharp, because nobody wants to stay out until 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. So it's our reunion show. We've waited a long time. We're setting the rules, and we're going to have some bands play after us, but we're going on first. Because we want to sound check and leave everything up. I don't want any other stage plots messing with anything. It's going to be hard enough as it is. So I would like to have the amps sound the same way as when I sound checked it.
What about plans for more music?
There's more music coming. Yes, you can count on it. There is a talk of an EP. There definitely is enough material for it. There is, until I know definitive dates, I don't want to put definitive things with it, but rest assured there is more music, and, I'm really excited to share it with everyone. And, I will say this, and I'll give you the exclusive here, is that everything is chapters. Spirits High is a chapter. For What It's Worth is a chapter. They all mean something. And when I finally get to the point where they're all out, I will do a post of what this is and why it is. I don't want to give that away right now, but there's a whole story kind of going on here. And these songs are, they're, like I said, they're the chapters. It's a book, kind of, but it's not 500 pages or something crazy like that.
That's not War and Peace, but I love that idea. That's really cool, is to kind of have that connection with the songs. I wish more artists would do that.
I mean, like I have all the time, right? It's a different thing. I don't have, a rigorous tour schedule. I don't have a label telling me like this has to be done now. These are all created in their own time, and they all have their own meaning, but they all are very symbiotic, and they work together, and it all means something. And it's all about getting that out and moving on from there, and how life is. You can't live in the past. You gotta keep moving. You can always use the past to kind of help you learn how to navigate things, because that's what wisdom does. But, you can't be rooted completely in the past. You always have to look to the future with some kind of optimistic, I don't know, certainty or uncertainty. You gotta, things do and will get better. you will hit bad times, but ultimately I think the older you get and the more you understand, the more life starts to make sense. And I think that things can become a lot better if you're willing to do that, and some of that is letting go of things. You got to let go to move through it, to move on for new things to happen.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect way to end our conversation.
Jay,
Guys, it's been a wonderful discussion. Always a blast talking with you.
yeah, you too, brother. And let's do it again soon. I mean, there might be another reason to talk this year, and I'm always down. And I thank you so much for you reaching out and wanting to do this and having these wonderful conversations. You ask great questions, and you're a true music lover, and I'm honored to do it.
Absolutely. You got an open door anytime you want to come on and do the show. Absolutely.
Right on, brother.
Everyone, that is Scott Stevens. All his links will be in the show notes. So when you're listening and you're done and you like what you hear, which is what you're going to do, you want to go click on his links and it'll lead you into the Scott Stevens world, all the information about the Exies, the show at the Viper Room, and go check it out. It's a fun place to be. The song last year, Spirits High, his new one, For What It's Worth, are just absolutely incredible. I'd like to thank him again. It's always been a blast. I love the discussions we have. I'm Jay Scott. This has been another episode of The Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Take care of each other, stay safe, and we will talk soon. Thank you.
For what is worth, I had to fail to break through. Had to lose it all to do the best I could. It's time to make amends while I still can, before the day